what you need to do is, if you want to get in touch with them to start this process off, you need to give them a call on this number.
The more that we can talk to young people in schools about sexual health and the issues that they might face, the better. I think that will also help us hopefully see over time and in the long term a big shift in attitudes towards sex, in attitudes towards sexual health, abortion, and an increase in knowledge and awareness about where to get help if you need it, and how to keep yourself safe and well, which is also really, really important. And if kids grow up hearing those positive messages in schools, then that can only be a good thing. That's great.
Ackland Burley School in Camden has a strong tradition of listening to their students and involving them in having a say in developing school policies and classroom practice. When it came to reviewing the school's SRE policy, they actively sought out the views of their students. Senior teacher Richard Henley and parent governor Charlie Ware were instrumental in setting up a student focus group.
Yeah, brilliant. See you in a minute.
Okay, the students were given access to an outside advisor who worked with them to help express their ideas and get their thoughts and feelings down on paper.
What do they need to know about sex? And what do they need to learn about relationships? If you could, put the things that you think they need to know about sex on the body itself, and then put the things you think they need to learn about relationships round the person, okay?
The focus groups were able to provide us with an insight into what the students wanted to find out about, because it's only too easy to make assumptions about what you include in the SRE curriculum. And quite often, the students have their own priority list, and it's something that we need to listen to. I think for most parents, the notion that they can deliver SRE, relationship education, sex education to their own children is pretty scary. And I think that also for the students themselves, though obviously they want to be able to talk to their parents about subjects they're worried about and things that they're thinking about, they wouldn't see their parents as the primary source of information.
I was coming in as somebody who has no axe to grind and no assumptions about how I'm going to teach it or what I should teach. So we set up the focus group on that basis, finding out what these young people thought should be happening in school. They wanted to emphasize the element of relationships, that understanding emotions, feelings, relationships, those are key issues for young people. And what we know historically is that often people have left school at 16 saying their sex education was too little, too late, and too biological. If we sort of imagine somebody who maybe didn't have such a wide choice because they didn't live in a city, what sorts of people do you think you'd recommend them to talk to?
Parents.
So parents are a good source, do you think, to talk to?
If you feel comfortable, if they feel comfortable, and if there's nothing else. So
yeah.
Abortion, yeah, it's a very tricky subject to deal with for many people, not least the woman who's thinking of getting it done. The primary thing was basically how it should be taught, and it also came up how we'd like whether we want abortion to be in the actual syllabus and everything with the PSHE lessons. Now it comes up in RE, but that's just mainly the moral issues of it and the different religious aspects of it and whether they disagree or agree. But we never sort of touched on the emotional and physical aspects of it, which is important, more important in some senses than the moral issues, I suppose.
What did you have on yours?
Abortion.
Okay.
It's in the body and outside the body.
Yeah, I noticed that was quite clever. You wrote it across the board. Why in and out?
Because there are emotional aspects and physical aspects which are quite, even. So the emotional aspects is making the decision of having the abortion, the moral issues. But, the physical aspects, is actually having it done, what are the costs?
Abortion education is something that many teachers are quite naturally wary of. They're not sure how to approach this. I think it's something that's best done year 11 upwards. I think it's something that's best done, again, in the context of thinking about teenage pregnancy, not introducing abortion as, again, this big topic flying out of nowhere and landing on a teacher or a pupil's desk. So in terms of teenage pregnancy, what are the choices a young person might have to make? So looking at things like adoption, abortion, contraception for the future, and what it would be like to be a teenage parent. All those things should be the context in which abortion is taught.
Know the right language.
I think I'd like to learn more about the aftermath and how, when you have abortion, what that means for the future. because there's rumours, I don't know if it's true at all, whether if you have an abortion once you might not be able to have kids again, and I think the fact that I don't know if that's completely true or not is really important because it needs to be part of your decision making.
In dealing with abortion education, the school takes a balanced approach. We are seeking to let the students have accurate information, to have insight into the moral and ethical considerations that they will need to understand, so that they have and develop a sense of autonomy. And we're also looking to avoid driving them in any particular area. We're not delivering this education in a value-laden way. We're looking to deliver it in a value-free way so that the students themselves can do their own inquiries, know where to look for knowledge, know the kind of information they need to seek, and can then make up their own minds about the subject.
And you don't know whether...
I think to be taught about abortion effectively, we should get somebody from outside school to teach us so that it's not so embarrassing for a teacher and so it's not so embarrassing for us. And it might be taught more professionally if somebody's specifically trained in that aspect of sexual health.
Bringing in an external expert to talk about something is good because I think pupils will pick up on the messages that they bring. But you also need confident, skilled teachers who are there day by day, week by week, because the experts can't be there day by day, week by week. And what we know is that young people learn things gradually and they take some time to process it. And then they'll want to come back and ask a question, won't they? And if the expert isn't in that day, damn, who am I going to ask? So I think it's the confident teachers who are supported by external speakers. That's what you really want.
I put forward the idea to have more confident teachers and to put possibly training for that type of thing. And if teachers could volunteer rather than be chucked in at the deep end, so to speak, and to be asked whether they would like to participate in such a lesson, because I know it's difficult, obviously. If you're not confident at all, then it's very hard.
I think one of the things that really disappoints me when I go in sometimes is the teacher will say, well, I've never taught sex education, I'm not really qualified to do this. Truth is, the best teaching skills in the world, all teachers have, and they can use them in the context of PSHE and sex education. So I'm very confident that teachers can do this. They just need a bit of time to practice it.
One of the methods PSHE teacher Heather Osborne used to develop her own self-confidence in teaching about abortion was to invite guest speakers with sex education expertise to come into school to help further increase her students' knowledge. She closely studied the methods they employed.
Okay, so my name's Kate, and I'm here from Education for Choice. The mission of our charity is to ensure that all young people can make their own informed decisions about pregnancy and abortion.
So as a project worker, I do a lot of different things. One is coordinating our Talk About Choice program. So going into schools, working with teachers, but because we are a small charity, a lot of it is about supporting teachers because they can very much do these lessons themselves. Well, I absolutely understand when teachers say that they are anxious about approaching this subject. Sexual health subjects in general can be very challenging, especially if you're talking in a religious studies perspective where you may not have sexual health expertise. But actually, abortion is a fairly straightforward in terms of factual information, and young people are dying to talk about it, which makes it much easier, that they're already ready, interested, willing to talk about it, and in fact relieved to find a safe, calm, factually correct space to talk about it.
So before we get started, I always start off by doing some ground rules. As you know, abortion can be a pretty sensitive subject, so I think it's always good to lay down some rules. Do you guys know what I mean by ground rules? Yeah, so kind of...
There are certain things that, as a guest speaker, I always want to make really clear. One is about respecting everyone's beliefs and everyone's opinions. Obviously, abortion is an extremely emotive subject, and I'm never there to change someone's mind about how they feel about it. I'm there to get them to think about some of the issues around it. I also like to start with an activity that's a brainstorm.
When you hear the word abortion, you might think of all different kinds of ideas, feelings, beliefs that might pop into your head. So what I want to do is get some of those out there, get some of those words out there. So hands raised, what comes to mind? Murder. Murder.
Students may say the kinds of words that they might normally think of as non-academic or too extreme, so murder always comes up. But that's fine. It's fine to get all those words out there. Other people will respond then.
Decisions.
Decisions. Great.
Regret.
Regret.
Health.
Health. Good.
Moral.
Moral. Good.
There's so much misinformation out there, and if you Google the word abortion, all kinds of crazy things come up, sometimes very disturbing images. So I think they're excited to have a place where they can find out something that's actually accurate. For example, what comes up in every classroom is whether or not abortion causes infertility, which it doesn't. It's a very damaging myth because we think that sometimes when people do have abortions, they have somewhere in the back of their minds an idea that they can't become pregnant again, which actually leads to repeat unintended conceptions or repeat abortions. So there's the factual stuff and getting that stuff out there and letting them know that there are evidence-based things, that abortion is safe, common, legal. Those are kind of the big three things that I always try to address.
The main reason for having sex is basically having a baby, right? So basically, pleasure. Yeah, pleasure, whatever it's called. Yeah, but I'm speaking, right? Okay, so I was saying, so I wouldn't get myself into that situation in the first place. When I'm ready, I will do it. Okay, let me finish everything I've got planned in my life already. In 10 years' time, I see myself somewhere good, innit? I don't want to see myself pushing a baby. No way! No way, I don't want to do that.
I feel really passionately about sexual health education because I didn't really have any. I had abstinence-only sex education, which isn't sex education at all, and which we know increasingly is not useful. And I love the opportunity to be able to talk to young people about this issue. And I know they've got a lot of questions. And when you think about what it's like to be a teenager, you're worrying about so many things that the last thing you need to worry about is some of these life-changing kind of, scenarios that you could find yourself in, like having an unintended pregnancy.
As a girl, we need to know all our options as women because we have the right to do things like this, and we need to know what's the truth and what it's going to be like. We need to kind of understand exactly what it is before we make a judgment on it. And so if we can learn it in school, it's very helpful.
I think it's important to teach young people about these sort of subjects because, as everyone knows, the rate of sex, the age that people have started doing it is going down and the abortions is going up, and they're things that it can happen to anyone. There can be any time when you have to come to a decision about this sort of thing, and you need to know all the facts or all the things that you can do so that you make the best decision you can.
Abortion education is important because it's a reality, and it's a reality which we don't talk about enough. Something like 1 in 3, possibly 1 in 4 women has an abortion. Now, if that's the case, in every class I teach, potentially 8 of them will have an abortion. I would hate to think that any of them would go through this and it would come as a complete surprise to them that this was going on, that they had no idea how to go about it. Same way, I expect them to be able to manage a career, I expect them to be able to manage their lives. This is a significant part of life, so let's address it.
Hello, yes, is this the central booking service? Yeah, well, I've just done a pregnancy test and found out I'm pregnant. And so I think I need to book an appointment to come in for an abortion.